And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we're talking about if the Washington Commanders have made enough moves to be ahead of the rest of the NFC East right now. And so, before we go ahead and jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel for lots of touchdowns this upcoming season. And so, in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. And so, make sure you hit that subscribe, you hit that like button, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so, with that being said, we are talking about have the Washington Commanders made enough moves to be ahead of the NFC East or their NFC East rivals, so to speak. And so, this really comes from the most recent news around the NFC East. And so, if you have not got a chance to see this, the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers have made a deal. And so, you see that the Steelers are going to receive a 2026 third round pick and a 2027 fifth round pick. And in exchange here, the Cowboys are going to receive wide receiver George Pickens and a 2027 sixth round pick here. And so the significance of this is that with George Pickens coming over to the Dallas Cowboys, it looks like that they're sending a message that they're trying to definitely get better at the wide receiver position. They're trying to now give CeeDee Lamb, another, wide receiver alongside of him and make it tough on the rest of the division. And so that leads me to just really point number one and why I think that the Washington Commanders really have made enough moves to be ahead of the NFC East right now. We'll see what happens once preseason and everything ends. But, starting with this, look, I think that Adam Peters is already ahead of the ball game because when you think of the trade that he made last season to bring Marshon Latimore in, he envisioned, Marshon Latimore being healthy and being the physical corner that he has already been in the National Football League. And I'm banking on the fact that he is going to get Marshon Latimore at that level this year. I think that Marshon Latimore is going to come in. He's definitely got the chip on his shoulder because he wants to prove that he's still got it. And I think he's going to be more up for the challenge of what is going to come at him in this division. I think that now, after a season that he had this last season, it really wasn't even a season. It was like a portion of the season because he came over in the trade deadline. He's going to be more comfortable in the defense. He's going to have a bit more of an understanding of the concepts and things like that. And he's actually going to be on the field, hopefully. You're banking on the fact that there's not going to be a setback or any other injury. And he's going to be able to be out there and actually be doing it, because it's one thing to be on the sidelines and in the film rooms and things like that and picking it up that way. But it's another thing to actually be out there on the field. You're getting the signs, you're getting, the concepts, and you're actually running the actual reps out there. And so I think that is going to be an added bonus. And this is why you have got to love where the Washington Commanders are headed as far as being ahead of the division, because you've already got, I think, an elite corner. All he has to do is be healthy, come in and show what he's already shown in the National Football League. And number two, I think another reason why I think the Commanders are ahead here, especially when it comes down to the wide receiver play that the Commanders are going to face here in the NFC East, you have Trey Amos coming in. And so, look, Trey Amos, if he's able to get to, his ceiling point, and I'm not saying that he's going to come in and he's going to be just perfect all the time. He's certainly going to have some bad plays and miscues and things like that. But I just think that there's so much that he can bring to the table that's going to translate that immediately would scream out as a number two corner, I think, aside from Marshon Latimore, if he doesn't turn into, corner number one. And so this just lets you know Adam Peters, the forward thinking, and just why he's playing chess versus checkers. Because, look, a lot of us were talking about edge rusher and things like that. And yes, to a certain extent, there was the talk around a corner. But the fact that you get a corner like this that can, I think, slide in and be a starter, and a corner that is going to be able to meet the physicality that he's going to face in this division, like, I think that that's huge. And when you think about just the tandem that you could possibly have just between those two cornerbacks, and so not even talking about the rest of the roster, with Mikey Sam-Rastil and others, but just with those two, Marshon Latimore and then Trey Amos, like, this could potentially be one of the best, tandems that we've had in Washington in quite some time. It made me think back to the late 90s. In fact, I think 97, 98, when we had Darrell Green and Chris Dishman. I'm not saying that, one of these guys is going to be a Hall of Fame or anything like that, but both of those corners, I believe in 97, they were Pro Bowlers. And so that is exactly what I would like to see from the Washington Commanders. And you know that they're going to need that. And it seems that Adam Peters is really ahead of the ball game here. And he knew, coming into this thing that, look, the Commanders, you're going to have to face A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith twice this, for the year. You have also, too, what's going on in Detroit, right? Like once you get out of your own division, or the NFC East, I should say, you're going to have to face other teams within the NFC East divisional round where it could be a Detroit again, where you have to go against St. Brown, and then also too Jamison Wilson or Williams, another player. And then when you think about the Giants and what we have here, also going back to the division, you have Malik Neighbors and you have Darius Slay, and then also too with what the Dallas Cowboys have just done in getting Lamb, and then also too Pickens, like you need to be ready to go against those type of players, and you need to be able to slow that down. And so defensively, I think that shows you that the Washington Commanders have certainly made some adjustments in the secondary to be ready for that. And that's not even talking about just the other players that we have, because remember, we have Will Harris that can be versatile in the secondary. You have Jonathan Jones, who I think is going to be huge for the Washington Commanders. Mikey Sainristil, we absolutely know this guy is a baller. And look, he can go either inside or outside. And we're anticipating that he's going to move inside with Trey Amos. And so there's a chance that, look, even with Mikey Sainristil having to go back to the outside, I still think that the Commanders are going to be in a great position. We'll see what happens, in camp and preseason, if Trey Amos can take that step forward, which I think he can. But point being, the Washington Commanders, I think, are equipped and ready to go against what they're going to face here in the NFC East. And also, too, I think the rest of the division as they move forward. And so next, another thing here, and why I think that the Washington Commanders are certainly ahead of the ball game, I think of, what we did in round one with Josh Connelly Jr. And I know we talk about just the things that Josh Connelly Jr. can do as a player, just how smooth he is, how much of a technician he is right now. And you just think about just the upside for him. And, hopefully he does become the day one starter. I think that the Washington Commanders can maybe afford to kind of ease him in, but we'll see what happens. This is a guy that has not or lost a lot of games, and he's going to come in with a lot of fire, definitely going to compete. And there's a real chance that, yes, he could be a starter day one here. And I just like the forward thinking yet again from Adam Peters, because I think that not only are we going to see the payoff this season, but you're going to see the payoffs for seasons to come, which is why I think that, once again, the Commanders are ahead of this, because just thinking about, just the draft story about how Josh Connelly Jr. was able to take care of Abdul Carter, when you think about that, look, that is forward thinking at its finest, because if he does turn into an elite pass rusher in this division, you already have a player in Josh Connelly Jr. who has faced him in college. He did very well against him in the Big Ten championship game, didn't give up a sack. And I know it's college, but it's the fact that you have a player that has already competed against, somebody that a lot of people think he could be really an elite pass rusher at some point in time. And so, look, you're already ahead of the ball game, and that's considering, obviously, that both of these players reached their ceiling. But I just love what Adam Peters has done with this roster from a roster construction, and it's little things like that I think you have to think about when you're like, okay, did we do enough so far to be ahead of the rest of our opponents? And I think that you see that, with those type of moves with the Washington Commanders. And lastly, from a financial standpoint, just in comparison, the Cowboys, if George Pickens gets to his ceiling, that is certainly going to cost the Cowboys some more money, because you think about that, they just gave the bag to Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. They're going to have to pay Micah Parsons. And then if you think about the fact that they would have to pay out George Pickens, like that's going to hurt your roster construction for the long term. And the thing with Adam Peters, what he has done best, I think, and I've said this a lot with him, is he goes out and he gets value deals. It's deals where, yes, players are getting paid, but it's not like it hurts the salary cap. It's something that the Washington Commanders can either move on from with the 1-year deals, and you can go get something else, or there's not a whole bunch of money that's really invested right now, which is why the Commanders are in a great situation to really maximize what they have with Jaden Daniels as far as the roster construction standpoint, because Adam Peters, he clearly is playing chess and not checkers out there. And so let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking. Do you feel like that Adam Peters and the Washington Commanders are certainly ahead of their NFC East rivals, and also too ahead of the rest of the division, really, with some of these moves here? And again, we got to find out what's going to happen, towards the end of the preseason, heading into the season. I mean, obviously things could change there, but let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. I think that Adam Peters, again, is playing chess and not checkers. But as we always say, look, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.